Hi, this is your instructor Julia Grav. In this example, I'm going to show you how to lay out the amortization details of a loan. Amortization is the process of looking at each period and seeing which part of that loan per period is going to the principal of the loan or the interest of the loan and what the balance might be after that payment. So we're going to start here with the amortization details portion of this spreadsheet. And we're first going to add the first period. So the first period is going to be 1. So this would be our first payment. In this example here, we've got a monthly payment, which has been calculated interest rate and the terms in years, the months for each payment. So our first payment is going to be this amount, but from that payment, so we'll just put that in there. So referencing that payment, and we're going to use an absolute reference for that payment using F4 on the keyboard to change the reference to an absolute. We're going to copy some of these functions and references down into a table chart that shows us how much per period is going towards the principal versus the interest of the payment. So the next function we're going to be using is the Ppmt, and as it says, this returns the payment on the principal for a given investment or loan based on periodic constant payments. So I'm just typing equals Ppmt and then hitting tab on my keyboard to confirm that this is the function that I want to use. I'm going to use the function dialog box now to bring up the function arguments. The rate is going to be 6.25%. However, this is an annual rate and we need to make sure that it is being calculated monthly. We're going to make an absolute reference to this because we're always going to reference this rate. The per is the specific period, so that's going to be 1 in this case. The N per is the total number of payments, and that's going to be 30 years with 12 months in each year. And the PV is the present value. Negative because it's a loan. We'll set the PV to be B4, and I don't need to enter the future value for any cash that's remaining at the end. And there's one more argument here that sets whether you want to be at the beginning of the end of the payment term. These two are optional, and we're not going to use them in this function nor the next. So pressing OK now, it's telling us that out of this payment of $2,462 and change, principal of the loan, that is the actual amount here. Let's calculate how much is going towards the interest. So we can do this in a couple of ways, right? We could take the payment and minus the principal, or we can use the Ppmt function. Now let's go ahead and do that. Again, I typed in the function, hit tab on my keyboard, and now I'm going to use the function argument dialog here. So we're looking at the rates, the same, divided by 12 years. Here our period is the first period, so the first payment, 360 payments in total, and the loan present value is B4. Okay, and so then the balance is actually only how much of the principal we'd paid off of our loan. So that's going to be our loan amount minus the principal. So that's the balance of our loan. You can see here I've got hash symbols. This is an indication that my column is not wide enough to show the result of this function. So let's use a double click between E and F, and now we can see how much of the loan is remaining after that first payment. Let's set up 4 payments here, and I'm going to use the autofill to fill a series. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The payment's going to be the same reference every single time. The principal, if I were to copy this down, I can notice that I actually forgot to have an absolute reference here in my functions. Very important to look at your functions before you copy them. Which cells do you want to change relative to their position in the spreadsheet, and which cells do you want to remain the same? Well, we're always going to be referencing this terms in years, 30, in our function, so that needs to remain the same. In fact, the only thing that changes in this function as I copy it down is the reference to the period. So that will work a lot better when I copy it down. You can see here that in cell C13 I now have a reference to A13 rather than A12. So let's copy it down, and we'll do the same here, making sure that my reference to the terms in years is absolute. And finally, the balance actually needs to be recalculated here. It needs to be the balance from the previous period minus the principal payment. So once I create that function, it is relative to each column and row, so I will just copy that down as relative reference without any absolutes. Okay, let's create the rest of the amortization details for each period of the loan. I'm going to place my cursor in cell A12 and then use the fill series option to fill in the column from 1 to 360, just linear. And click OK. And you can see when you scroll down that that goes all the way to 360. Next, I'm going to autofill my payment all the way down just by double clicking. You can use page down to see that it goes all the way to the end. And back up again. Let's take a look at the principal. Again, double clicking. I'm expecting that principal to go up as the loan progresses and the amount that goes towards the interest to go down. So this is really interesting to understand in terms of accounting, that most of your first few payments that you make off a loan actually go towards interest. They don't go to paying off the principal of the balance at all. So you can see here at the very end of my loan, I'm only paying $12.76 in interest, and my balance should be close to zero. Should be zero actually. At that point, I should have paid off my loan completely. Next up, we're going to talk about cumulative interest. So we want to know between certain numbers of periods how much interest I'm paying and how much is going towards the principal. So we'll look at that in the next video.